Hi guys. So today's May 16th and this morning I woke up with a really cool dream, and I'm going to read some of it just because I don't want to miss any details. Pretty cool. So I was dreaming that I had a catalog. It was about 2 inches thick and it was like paper. And it had different rooms and different elements to make choices from, like a decorator kind of catalog or something. Now it was odd because it was like paper, this 2-inch thick kind of paper, but it was like a hybrid. So let's say that I was like looking at a row and it had like words about it in the little picture, and the picture was very small, might I add, like less than an inch. If I looked at that picture, instead of like nowadays, like with the computer and stuff, if we want to know more about something on a website, we can click a hyperlink and go deeper and find out about anything that's hyperlinked, like a little more information, a little more information, a little more information. It was sort of like that, but way cooler. So in this, if I looked at an image, then all I had to do was think a thought that I was wondering, like, well, what would this look like in a different season? And then outside of the windows, it would change to that season so I could see how the colors would affect it. Or if I was thinking, well, if a guest came over, where would they lay their things? I could imagine this like scenario, and things would change in the picture to help me process, is this the room I want? Is this where I want to put the furniture? This kind of stuff, okay? So it was like really, really unique and very cool. Now, while I'm doing this process, looking through these pictures, I knew in the dream that I was like in heaven and that I was doing some sort of decorating project, like I was choosing very specific rooms for something. So these rooms in heaven, they had elements that were very different than how we think here on earth, okay? So for instance, the room that kept coming up to me quite often was a very small image of a little pink room. And by thinking through this room, I could see certain elements like this. I could think on and acquire textures, colors, furniture options, seasons through the year, feelings and moods of the room. The room shape or size, I could alter it by just thinking about it. The type and the function of the room, where it would lay next to some other room. Okay, so it's like super unique and really different, but really, really cool. Now, when I was making these choices of these rooms, there would be like a little box, like you would check box. Everything was done mentally except the actual choosing. And if I did a checkbox, I had to check that like manually. So, but like if I was thinking through like this pink room and I wanted to know what it would look like in the fall, I would just think fall, and then all of the windows would have like a fall background, okay? But then inside, I could also say, well, I don't think this pink room really goes with these rusts and yellows and everything. So I could have an option to have a fall decor just for that season. So I could say, okay, what would a fall room look like? And so I could have all the entire room more warm tones and like really match, right? So I was like, well, it's pretty neat. And with that option, I could also say, okay, at will, I might want to just change that and say, okay, I'm done with the fall look, I'm not into it today. And I could like have like a thinking and it would just turn it off. Okay, so here I am, and I'm going through all these little details, trying to figure out every little detail of a room and make sure that every element was perfect. And by perfect, I mean perfect. Like, where would you set your keys? Where would you hide this? Where would you hide that? So that at all times, no matter what, if people were coming to visit, if you were rushing around, if you were having a bad day, at all times, it would always look perfectly decorated. Okay, so because there's an actual thought out home for every single thing. Okay. Anyway, so I awakened a few times during this dream, but every time I would go back to sleep, I would just go right back into the dream where I left off. Now, this small pink picture of a room, I kept seeing that one. It kept like being brought forward to me quite often. Even though I was like flipping through the pages and looking at lots of rooms, that one just kept coming up again, and it would come up again. So in this room, I just kept thinking it was such a happy room, and it was like really beautiful. It was rectangular in shape. but it just kept standing out at me. And I was like, okay. And so I looked above it, and there was a number on it, like kind of like a catalog number if you're going to order something, I guess. But it didn't really say number or whatever. It just said 3303. So this room kept coming up so often in the dream that when I woke up, I looked up 3303 in the Strong's, and in the Hebrew it means fair and beautiful or excellent, typically used of a person. And I was like, well, the room I kept thinking was like super pretty, super beautiful, right? So then there was another element that I was choosing, and the elements had numbers too. So I kept choosing the same element in a room, and this number was 333. So in Strong's, 333 is a leader in Israel that binds things. So like, I'm forever binding Satan from whatever. And in Greek, it means to gaze or look attentively and properly survey things in order. And indeed, I was looking very attentively because I was trying to think through every single little step of this room. It had to be perfect, but I was doing it for multiple rooms, okay? But it had to be perfect. It had to be so well thought out, and I was paying attention to every detail in these pictures. So it kind of matched up a lot to me. I was like, well, the Greek means that. That's kind of interesting. Now, something really interesting about that specific Greek word, I'm going to take a little divergence. I'll get back to the dream, don't worry. Okay, is that this word in Greek is made up of two other words in Greek. And the first is ana, which means up, or as in completing a process up. That's kind of cool. And then theoreo, which is to gaze upon and look up and down, to pay very close attention to in order to grasp the full meaning of the thing, or to look at again. So to look at over and over and over to get the full meaning. Okay. So the last thing I saw in my dream was a small square picture of a young girl with blonde hair, maybe 3 to 4 years old, somewhere in that range. And as I looked at her, the longer I looked at her, the more I realized, oh, I think that's me as a child. Okay. So above her head was the number 33. And I remember thinking in the dream, why is 33 above her head? 33 is the Illuminati number. And then I was like, that's really weird. And then I was like, wait, why is this little girl in a catalog of like rooms and decorating? I don't see why she's here. And then after I had that thought, I remember thinking, oh, she's not related to the Illuminati at all. I was like, what's with 33? So when I got up and I was looking at all the numbers, of course in Strong's as in the Hebrew, it means helpful. But I was looking up in the Greek and it means come now. So I was like, oh, okay. Now, after reflecting on why a young me might be in this like decorating catalog, I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if God chooses each of our elements. You know how we're knit together in the womb and he chooses, you know, your personality, and like, you know, you've got these two genetic strains that are going to be picked and chosen from, right? But he's going to be the one who's going to go, no, this kid gets this, and this kid gets that, and this kid gets this, right? So I was like, well, just as I was looking at these rooms and trying to make them exactly perfect for function and form, I was thinking, you know, God probably, to each of us, he sees the perfection of what we will be, right? And he sees our potential of what we can be here on this earth. And so he's choosing to make us like each of us our perfect little room, if you want to think of it that way. Because he's saying, okay, all these elements, should they be disciplined and should they be pulled together correctly and whatever, this will be a perfect version of this, you know, thing I'm thinking of in my mind. Much like an interior designer sees a perfect room, even though everyone sees the chaos, right? Like if you've ever had to redecorate a room, everything gets like thrown in the middle, thrown on the sides, taken down, paint goes up, all these things. It's a bunch of chaos. But then at the end, what no one else can see, only the person doing it, is like this beautiful room and it's finished. And I think that's kind of how God sees us. Like maybe to each other, we all look like a bunch of chaos. But in truth, God sees our potential and where we're heading. And I think from the beginning, from the womb, he chooses out all of our elements. And yeah, we have to put in our effort, and we have to discipline ourselves and get in the word and do our part, right? To spring forth with what he would like us to be. But I was just thinking, the only reason that girl could be in there is because to remind me that God chose me and put the elements in me, just as I'm choosing all these things for this room. So when I woke up, and I never do this because our room's super dark, and I have to wear glasses in order to see like things that are smallish. So I never look at the time. I just don't look at the time. So, whatever. I know it's a discipline a lot of people do when they dream. They're like, I woke up at whatever time. But I did it this time, and I woke up and I pulled up my phone, turned it on. It's like glaring in my face. And I could see as clear as day with no glasses. It said 3:30 in the morning. And I was like, oh, 3:30. Wow. What's with all these threes? I'm freaking out. So I decided I got to get up because now this is too many threes in my day. So I pick up my phone, pick up my glasses, run downstairs to my office, and I start writing out this dream, and I write the whole thing out. And then I look at my phone, and I look at the time with my glasses on, and it says 3:01. Well, clearly it wasn't 3:30 when I looked at the clock. It wasn't even 2:30 because my eyes aren't that bad. So that's clearly the time that I needed to see because for whatever reason I needed to look up that number, right? So 3:30 in Strong's Hebrew is a thread of fine Egyptian linen. And in the Greek, it means to revive or flourish again. It's used of people whose condition or affairs are becoming more prosperous. So linen, more prosperous, and come now. I thought that was really encouraging and hopeful that this journey's almost done. So hang in there, folks. I just think soon we're going to be going to the next phase. We're going to be perfected, how God sees us, our potential. We're going to be able to rest for a change. A lot of us need some rest. I just think we're getting there. The linen's coming, folks. The linen's coming. Here are the verses that I found that I think connect all this together. So Psalm 139, 13-17, you formed me in my inward parts. You covered me in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvelous are your words that my soul knows very well. My frame was not hidden from you when I was made in secret and skillfully wrought in the lowest parts of the earth. Your eyes saw my substance being yet unformed, and in your book they were all written, the days fashioned for me, when as there were none of them. How precious are your thoughts to me, O God! How great is the sum of them. James 5, 7, and 8. Therefore be patient, brethren, until the coming of the Lord. See how the farmer waits for the precious fruit of the earth, waiting patiently for it until it receives the early and the latter rain. You also be patient, establish your hearts for the coming of the Lord's hand. And John 14, 2. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. So I hope that's a little encouraging to you. It was encouraging to me just to think about, how God has thought about us from the get-go. And, we might be done with this journey pretty soon. So hang in there.